on MDB Plus, and so we have one of those controls. And that's something we've already started to do. So we worked with EMP, have an e-share MDB Plus pool. We worked with the guys at Overnight Finance, and there's a pool on Cone as well. And we've agreed with several other people. Quite frankly, we've found. And this is probably the last, if I'm honest, the last pre-sale MDB Plus Alliance partnership we'll do, because it's just too much uncertainty versus the time investment for us. But obviously, we feel very sort of like confident and assured by you guys personally. But there's been other people that have come along who have said, yeah, we're definitely going to use it. And actually, in practice, when it's really shook out, what they were looking for is sort of alignment and exposure with MDB as an organization. And that's obviously very disappointing, because because it's the exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve, right? A synergy isn't one person screwing another person over; it's two people contributing to each other's success, and so that's really what MDB Plus does. But there's other things as well. So, for instance, we've got an NFT project that's going to be launching in a few weeks with EMP, for instance. And then we can use our other stable-backed assets. We could use MDB Plus. Maybe we use Phoenix Plus to do the pre-sale. And there's many other ways that we drive volume through the ecosystem as well. So yeah, there's many different ways to skin the cat. Phoenix Plus looks super interesting at the moment as well. So MDB Plus is like the sensible LP pair, but Phoenix Plus is like the beast of an LP pair. But you know, that also needs to grow to a certain scale before we can start adding multiple LPs to that.
Yeah, I think from what I understand, Phoenix Plus is much more lucrative being an LP pair, considering that you've got a stable 3-digit APY, correct me if I'm wrong, as well as a price that never goes down, right? So if a token were to pair both MDB Plus and Phoenix Plus at the same time, what technical advantages as well as disadvantages and also in terms of revenue would the token have?
Yeah, look, I think with this design of token, it's all about controls, and the challenge is as well is that when you deliver really high APYs on a stable backed asset, what you encourage people to do is to leave money in there. When people leave money in there, you've got no volume and it's not driving APY. So ironically, its success kills it eventually, right? It doesn't kill it, but the thing that gets it from 0 to 200k TVL is also the thing that stops it getting much past 1 million TVL, right? So we recognize this, and with Phoenix Plus, with MDB Plus, we added additional functionality that we don't see in XUSD, where we're able to, control the size of a single wallet, basically, which means we can control LPs, and we can we've got sort of things that we can trigger if we need to basically force volume out of the token, then we can do that. Phoenix Plus uses 3 ways of driving volume through it. One is traditional buy, sells, transfers. The second is the fact that you can be infernoed out of it randomly. So, the contract can cash you out and you'd be cashed out into MDB Plus. Albeit the probability of being cashed out is less than the interest you would earn, if that makes sense, without me going into details. And then the third driver of Phoenix Plus's volume or APY is the fact that it's paired with Infinity, and Infinity has a very high volume. Infinity, it's not very high. There's many degen tokens doing like 3 million volume. To be honest, they're using bots to wash trade because they want to get listed on CoinGecko. Our volume is, 100% honest. So, our volume is like 50% of the LP on a daily basis. So the contribution that Infinity makes to Phoenix Plus is huge. The contribution that Phoenix Plus makes to Infinity is huge, and it's just another one of those synergies. So I think the question would be, it's a very delicate one to mess with that ecosystem at the moment, because those 3 things work beautifully together. And if we added somebody else to Phoenix Plus, who then, being very blunt, if they weren't able to drive the levels of volume that we're seeing from our own mechanisms, then they would effectively be taking more than they're giving, and it would be a net minus rather than a plus.
Got it. Are you guys also arbitraging the LPs for MDB Plus as well as Phoenix Plus at the moment? And if I may ask, how much revenue does this yield in comparison to volume per day?
It's not very high actually, because they're not, they're not particularly volatile assets, right? So I think we arbitrage between our MDB B&B and MDB plus MDB pools, and that has delivered an average of about $80 a day for 3.5-4 months actually, albeit because the pools got bigger over the last 3-4 weeks, you're seeing that arb opportunity come down because the volatility is much less actually. Even with 5-10k buys and sells now, we're seeing much less volatility and opportunity for arbitrage. But yeah, we arbitrage actually everything. We arbitrage the MDB plus contract versus the MDB plus pool on PCS. We arbitrage Phoenix plus pool versus Phoenix plus contract, and we do have a cheeky bot that's actually about to go live in the next 24 hours that we're testing through one of our team, which actually will be designed to basically trade through Infinity but not make a profit. But because it pays the Phoenix Plus tax in and out, what it will do is actually be driving the value of Infinity by trading backwards and forwards, and also be trading. It'll also be pushing up the APY of Phoenix Plus even more. So actually, that'll be our fourth, a bit of alpha there. That'll be our fourth, APY stream for Phoenix Plus. I do apologize, Ted, because you asked me a really simple question. I could have just said yes. I do bang on sometimes for like 5-10 minutes.
No, we definitely appreciate, all the information. And I feel like a lot of people here really need to understand the insides and outs of a protocol. We see, especially in this bear market, there's a lot of new tokens coming up, and the only thing they say is that this is done by a previous dev team. This is done by, a caller or a development team that's developed a previous token that has reached a high market cap or has even sold out on, degen launch pads such as Pink Sale, Gempad, etc. Now, people also need to understand the real protocols and what they're building, as well as real products that can actually drive appreciation and make long-term return on investment. Because not everything in crypto is a moonshot. Not everything in crypto is going to be a safe moon effect, in my opinion. And I think everyone needs to understand this loud and clear. One more question, Danny. What happens to the funds? What happens to the revenue that is generated by arbitrage? Do you guys reinvest back into the LP with this, or is it stored in the treasury for development? It's really something we're doing similar in parallel. So I also want to know how you guys are doing it, or what's the best course of action. And it's all advice for us as well as other protocols in the space.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose we try to. So in terms of we have these simple models that we work against. So one simple model is that our operational costs have to stay within our marketing ops tax. Yeah, and that's it. We live to that. We've never spent a single cent out of the trust fund, out of the raise. We've never spent a single cent out of it. And that has meant that it's been very robust, even in really difficult times. And so it depends. Most of it goes back into operations, and most of it is then used to buy MDB. Actually, it just randomly will just buy back MDB basically, and that MDB is kept or stored. And to be fair, our marketing ops wallet probably gets a bit of a raw deal, because we're not, we work to like some pretty clear guidelines internally, and there are our own rules at the end of the day. It's our organization, but still, I think you've got to behave with some internal discipline. So actually, our marketing ops wallet probably, I'd say, is probably owed at least $30,000 by the trust fund. Actually, it's probably the other way around. And yeah, so but some of it goes into the trust fund. Actually, I think some of our ARB goes directly into the trust fund, but most of it goes into marketing ops.
Got it. So can you also explain the concept of the trust fund for everyone here as well? And one important question that I did have, is the trust fund also considered a liquidity reserve or a SAFU fund in the case of contract exploits?
Yeah. So I think if you to maybe answer your question backwards, I think if you've got a gun to your head and you had a major issue, then at the end of the day, your organisation's money is your organisation's money, and you would always you need to be pragmatic in the moment. But there, we don't it'd be very difficult to exploit us because we don't have any flash loan. Uh, there's no way to compromise that. Stable backed assets, we don't have any flash loan exposure. All of our major funds are under multi-sigs, and basically the people that you would need to corrupt to breach those multi-sigs, you've just basically got no chance. So yeah, we're very, very safe in that sense. Yeah, but so basically the way the trust fund works is the trust fund is invested across a range of different investments, most of them on chain, some of them off chain, like yield nodes, for instance, or freeway we invest in as well. And the idea is that the fund accumulates cash, and that acts as both an engine and an insurance policy. So it doesn't act as a liquidity pool. The liquidity pool is very healthy actually at the moment, but the fund is looking to burn supply as soon as possible. The end objective is that you all of your tokens and the fund is increased in value. That's our goal. So, but at the same time, you also, there's no point in chasing, or massaging your ego with the fund as well. It's not there to keep price up. It's there to execute when it sees potential value. Or there's other things, right? So we have B2B applications, we have gravity solutions, and a number of different reasons why we actually have to use MDB as a token for different things. And then when we need to do that, the protocol actually has to acquire its own supply and has to do that from the open market. So everything we do just creates, more sort of deflationary pressure.
Got it. So the MDB fund, is there a point that, sorry, the trust fund, is there a point that this fund would ever be depleted? And have you guys considered actually using this fund to invest in other protocols to not only build returns as some sort of investment vehicle for MDB holders itself, but to also support the other ecosystems that you would collaborate with? For instance, you do joint raise on some sort of partnership you're working on. Would this be an investment into the other project, or how how do you guys envision this being a larger vehicle in the long run?
I think there are options for that expansion. I think the fund is affected by the market, right? We have exposure to BNB and Cake and BuySwap and ETH, and so the fund does get, albeit we do hedge against that. So yeah, we do have some. The markets gets very bad and it does deplete. However, if the market pumps, it does improve really quickly because of the way that we hedge those funds. I suppose there's always a question of trying to keep a certain amount of it as liquid as possible. So first and foremost, you need to be in a position to protect your own protocol versus others. But yeah, no, look, things are open, but I think in this market it's very difficult to find decent investments, if I'm brutally honest. So yeah, I think we're certainly in a phase of trying to play it relatively safe and take baby steps at the moment, rather than take $1 million and try and times 10 it, because losing $1 million is much worse than the benefit of trying to gain another 9 at the moment in this market, I would say.
Completely understood. I also noticed that you guys have a very exclusive Millionaires Club, and this is something that I think a lot of token holders would be interested into getting. From what I heard from Mina, you guys get free cooking sessions and things like that. So do you perhaps in the long run have anything more lucrative planned out for this particular club? Global events, meetups, getting into actual blockchain summits, because I think MDB is a protocol and an ecosystem that really, really needs to be out there. You guys really need to, get up on stage, get into a conference, get into a booth or something, and then talk about why the other products are not sustainable. Because from what I see, MDB Plus, and Phoenix Plus are really tokens that kill it in a bear market, regardless of market conditions, actually. And you guys have formed sort of a very stabilized culture in which all the holders believe in you. I see some criticism towards MDB once in a while, and this is in various Telegram chats, and it's completely baffles me as to how people think that they're still going to be able to obtain moonshots in this market.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. Look, we're always open to feedback, and we don't have all the answers. We're on our own journey as well, so I'd always be interested to hear maybe what people see from the outside. I think, yeah, there is. We talked about potential metaverse location. I think in practice, in time in the industry, I think the metaverse location is probably up there with the NFT marketplace and the new decks that everybody says they're going to launch. And yeah, so there are definitely options. I think we're moving through a phase now over the next few months where we mature our strategy and we consolidate what we've already built. I think you can definitely say that our first 6 months is a proof of concept, and the concept has most definitely been proven in the most difficult of circumstances. So I think we're very investable. I think in this industry as well, it's extremely easy to spend money, right? There's people that tell me there's YouTubers tell me to give them $50,000 because they helped someone raise $1 million. They didn't. They were just there along for the ride. Or every TG marketing person says, "Give me 5 BNB and I'll times 10 you." And then they'll come up with some crappy excuse. And and I've been around the corporate world enough to know what people look like that just stand next to things that are already happening and claim they made it happen. And you see plenty of that within the industry. So I think long story short, we've been very thrifty in terms of how we've handled our money, and we are interested in doing some of the things that you've mentioned, albeit we first we're looking for the return on investment rather than it's very easy to spend money. It's very difficult to see a return, and that's really what we're looking for.
Completely understand. I feel like anyone who's promising you a return on investment on your money as a founder of a protocol is a complete scam. So no one can guarantee you a raise. And I'm speaking out of experience as well, because we've been running the pre-sale. There are people that have come to us saying 5 beans up front, 10 beans up front, we're going to raise you 10x of this. So there's nothing guaranteed, even when it comes to investments. And I do want everyone to really be careful out there as well. But I do really love the concept of the Millionaires Club, and something that I'm discussing with my co-founders about getting in as well. We do have.
You want to be in VIP. That's the way. That's when people will tip their hat to you if your name's in black in our server, because it's with the Millionaires Club is always pegged to $500. So you can get in and the price could times 10. Theoretically, you could sell 90% of your bag and still be in the Millionaires Club. With VIP, you have to own a minimum of 1 million tokens, which when we started was like 2.5K. But now it means holding on to like 15, 16K worth of investment. And you imagine where it will be in 12 months, in 2 years, in 5 years. Being a VIP will be very hard because the supply will be coming down very quickly, and the value would be a test in itself. So yeah, not giving you the hard sell, but if you want to be a baller in our world, you get to VIP, and lots of people aspire to that as well.
Right, so I actually meant VIP, where you actually hold 1 million MDB. So I think the current valuation is about 16.2 K. So that's the one we're getting to, looking to get into, and not the Millionaires Club, not the $500. But do you guys have something planned, especially in terms of real life interactions for the VIPs?
Well, we've talked about a meetup. I think we said maybe 50 million market cap, because we don't think we'll you know, and certainly our intention is not just to like run up really quickly. I'm very happy to see the way our chart has behaved, and yeah, so yeah, I think we've said the number is about 50 million market cap when we, and I don't think we touch 50 million and we sort of all meet up. But I think if we're demonstrating that we're sustainable above 50 million market cap, then that's a point in time when we'll be looking at an event, and VIPs I think would get would get some financial contribution towards towards attending that event as well.
I'm very interested to see where it goes. Actually, there's another, component of MDB that I was really curious about and never really took the time to understood. Do excuse me for that. And it is the Gravity project. Can you go more into detail about what the Gravity project is? And from the surface, it seems you're sort of absorbing or making acquisitions with certain projects that have no longer the capability to continue.
Yeah, and Gravity Project was kind of like my own sort of brainchild, and it didn't come from me as a project leader. Actually, it came from me as a holder in other projects, and I'd been through an experience numerous times, like many of us have, where a project is abandoned, or it's rugged, or it just fizzles out, and again, it was just another one of those another paradox within the industry that I found, that at the very end of that process, there was often resources and there was and also people, right? Good people, good investors, not these sharks that just want to flip your whitelist and then move on to the next one. People that really cared about that project succeeding are the ones that often hurt the most at the very end. And I thought, well, about I like to think about, well, how can you make a scenario where it's good for everybody involved? And Gravity really does that. So the term gravity comes from, if you think, like a planet that's lost its atmosphere, but there's still resources within the core of that planet. And what gravity is, when a project has reached that natural point, then we're able, or unnatural in the case of some projects where they've had exploits and things like that, then we're able to absorb the remaining resources, but then both community and also resources combined with our resources then become stronger and offers them much better opportunity for future growth. I think the average performance of our Gravity projects so far, if we don't include the ones that we've just done because I haven't really had enough time yet, the ones that we've done historically over the last 4 months, typically they're like 300% up from the amount. So sometimes people are like down 80% in a project, and they've been able to come across to MDB and then make up a lot of those losses actually. But also quite often, like I say, it's the people at the end of a project the projects really want in them. They're very loyal, they're very supportive, and they treat it like an investment, not like something they're just trying to flip.
So what exactly does MDB provide to these projects? Is it taking over their management completely? Is it additional funding, a mix of both? Or do you guys take over their treasury, whatever is remaining, their product, and convert them to MDB holders? We really want to understand more into detail about how this happens. I think there's a lot of projects in the space, especially some that we've been in this year, that need a lot of help.
Yeah. Look, I think it's certainly something for the end of a project. We've had projects reach out and say, hey, will you just give us some money? And it's not that, right? We've got, first and foremost, we have to look out for the interests of the people that have already invested in us, and I've no problem saying that. And it's about bringing more people together, and then the people that have come across getting that same service. So we don't it's not a business acquisition. We don't take on liabilities. We don't take on other people's protocols and try and keep it running. It is, if there is an end to that and there is an opportunity to merge the fund, it could be the LP, it could be treasury funds, and then we'll work out some sort of compensation scheme in MDB. In most cases, if it truly is at the end, then normally the ratios lend itself towards us getting very close to a full dollar refund in MDB tokens. Unfortunately, where there's situations where maybe there's been an exploit or or it's ended quite badly, then it's not possible to do that. However, if somebody's getting $3 out of 10 that they had invested, they're at least starting with $3 in a protocol that's got a bright future, rather than 3 becoming 2, then 1, and then 0. And that's ultimately what we do.
The question is, you mentioned refunding them in MDB. However, as we know, the MDB Plus as well as the Phoenix Plus actually appreciates in price when you sell the token. So why not refund them in MDB Plus instead? Because this would actually be beneficial for the protocol itself, right? Considering that if they are getting refunded at a higher amount than they've lost, they're looking for exit liquidity. This would actually have a lot of sell pressure on their side. What are the side effects of actually giving them MDB in refund instead of MDB Plus? Because if they sell MDB Plus, the protocol's price would go up, and investors on the other hand would also be happy. They'd have faith in your protocol. You sort of build a cult along the way as well.
Yeah, look, I think so. So I suppose there's we could go on about this all day, but I'll try and answer it in a really simple way. I think we're not afraid of people selling. Yeah, we've designed a protocol where we don't want to tell people they've got to hold forever. I'd rather tell people to take profits. It's a very sensible thing to do, and it's very healthy, and it's healthy for our protocol as well. So it also takes significant time and effort and resources, and as many of our holders here, and they would be well within their rights to say, why is Alice spending her time helping another project if there's no benefit for MDB? They'd be absolutely spot on. So everything we do, we pitch it as, this is good for them, it's good for you, and together we win. 1 + 1 = 3 in this case. If we gave them MDB Plus, then it'd be great for them, it'd be bad for MDB. There would be only downside. There'd be very little upside, to be honest. And actually, if somebody says, look, I'm out of here, I'm going to sell, that's completely up to them. At the same time, they can look at the track record of other projects where we have gone through that process, and I'd hope that they'd look at the history and be motivated to continue with the project. But at the same time, it's not a prison, right? It's an investment, and the benefit for them, actually, they do get the MDB tax-free as a purchase. So there's no sort of like haircut or anything on the way in. However, if they, after us investing that time and energy, if they wanted to say, look, well, I'm out of here, screw everyone at MDB, I'm not bothered, that's perfectly fine. They can just sell their MDB, and the process continues, and on we go. I don't know if that answers your question, Ted.
Yeah, it does. I was really interested to see why you guys refunded an MDB instead of a more sell driving price token, and I think that's a very good reason pointed out. The Gravity project is a really interesting concept, and I think there's not a lot of people really interested in saving dying protocols. Are you guys looking to, in the future, and this might be a bit off topic, at acquiring rebase protocols? As we know, we've seen a lot of rebase protocols really going down in terms of, in comparison to their all-time high. What are your thoughts? What are your honest thoughts on rebase protocols and actually saving them via the Gravity project?
I think for us, we're not, at the end of the day, we're not discriminating based on somebody's tokenomics or design of their protocol. At the end of it, there are people who've been through a difficult situation, and there are some resources, and we offer a way out for both. It's not one or the other, and the two together creates another synergy, which is good for everybody involved, right? And there are maybe other things, and it has crossed our minds, and we do get some cheeky suggestions from people within the community all the time. I think there is probably a different form of this, but that has to take a very different type of picture. I do think one thing that I noticed that's missing within crypto, and I think it probably lends itself to a few things. I think one is probably lack of business acumen within the industry. I think is probably one. I think two is probably far too much ego and lack of business acumen. But there's a real lack of M&A within the industry, And I know, yeah, there's somebody here who knows a hell of a lot more about M&A than I do. But again, M&A is a much larger game of finding synergies that are greater than transactional value. And I think as this bear market goes on, if it rolls on for another 6, 12, 18 months, I do see potential for more M&A type deals rather than gravity deals that could see, significant coming together of organizations where they complement each other strategically, as well as there being liquidity benefits at the same time.
I completely get the outlook. I really think, and I'm in a few certain rebase protocols as well that have faced a very detrimental journey in this bear market in terms of inflation as well as price depreciation because of market conditions itself. It would be really interesting to see MDB grow as an ecosystem that I would say consumes the other project, and in turn also is able to gather a very substantial amount of their community and really build your protocol up. And I think that's really a driving force for MDB's growth itself. So one question that I wanted to ask is, I see a lot of exclusivity that's going on in MDB. There's the Millionaires Club, there's the VIP. Do these particular sets of people have any governance on how the project works? Is there a plan to introduce some sort of governance based on snapshot voting? Is there some sort of decision-making power that they have in terms of how MDB functions as well as operates in acquisitions, in pivoting in certain directions, and other aspects such as token launches and innovations?
Nope. Simple answer. It's we've and I do see in many different ways. I see other protocols tie themselves in knots, I think, with some of their structures. I think for me, like, if you want to guarantee average decisions, then make everything a vote. That's like number one. I just feel quite strongly about that. I think at the same time it's a bit like when I say, for instance, I'm leading a division in a large business, right? I see my job is to strike a balance between the client, between the business, and between the people that work for me. And that's my job here as a project lead as well. It's very difficult to put people into that. And that's why you have shareholders, right? And that's why, organizations have benefits for the people that have invested and founded them, because then they're directly aligned to the performance of that organization, rather than being pulled in any particular direction. So yeah, for me, I think I don't want to be too harsh, but I think that way that some teams open decisions up, I think is a way of getting sign off to something that maybe they're looking for someone else to give. It's almost like, if you ask your partner if it was okay to do something, maybe you've been on a diet and you're like, well, would it be all right if I just had one cake? And I think you're doing that because you want them to tell you it's okay, because you probably know that it's not really in your plan, right? And yeah, so I see many protocols. Yeah, if I'm honest, I think I'm very cynical about the whole inclusive decision making. I also see, I'm empowered and accountable. So if you invest in our protocol, you have empowered us to deliver you an outcome, and we will do our best to deliver that outcome. And thus far, we've delivered fantastic outcomes for people. But at the same time, that also means that we're accountable, and we would also suffer losses if people decided that they didn't like the decisions or they didn't like the outcomes and they wanted to head off in another direction for another project, then that's completely up to them. So yeah, I don't want to point fingers at people, but there's some really strong examples I've got where I see people have one set of rules for cash coming in, and then they start changing the rules when actually we're very clear. We're like, look, okay, we're running this. We'll listen to our client base, and it's a really important part of the organization. But at the same time, we have to take responsibility for decisions. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I definitely agree as well. That is also how Daylight operates itself. We understand that community feedback is fundamental and plays a very important role in controlling, especially the emotions of our investors, if I'm being blunt, because I've seen a lot of investors and a lot of protocols saying that, my voice is not heard. Um, you guys are not respecting my investment. However, in the end, you are, in a way, buying a product or making an investment, and it is really some choices have to actually be private decisions taken by management completely. You cannot expect to buy tokens or stock or even shares of an organization and make all the pivotal decisions that are really important to how the company operates and in what direction it goes in. I really respect, the private decision makers, those who don't hand out governance completely, as well as projects that operate as a DAO. I think DAOs are projects that, they only let you vote on things to a certain extent either way. So it's really important to have accountability, responsibility, coming out front line as a person and saying, I founded this project. If I do something detrimental towards the protocol, this is on me completely, and people would actually respect that more than giving the right to vote on how the project operates, and then one wrong group, one wrong vote, and the whole thing can actually go to shit.
Yeah. I agree completely. And at the same time, you got to remember, it's people. We don't stop people. We're not honeypotting people, right? We don't. People can invest and they can also leave with their own free will. So it's a very delicate balance. It'd be very easy to put people in a situation where they could influence the outcome of your organization, but then they're not tied into it, right? So yeah, it's it's a very delicate balance.
It is because essentially you are giving them zero liability at all, if I'm being honest, by having governance rights, especially being pseudonymous or being anonymous in the blockchain, voting on private decisions that a company should actually privately make, and pivoting, the balance between what the founders of the project thinks as well as what the community thinks. It's a very dangerous power to have, and in a way, could feed towards the downfall or a bigger success of the project. So it's a very double-edged sword, in my opinion. Uh, one thing I do really want to expand on as well is it's something very interesting I came across, and I feel like a very minimum amount of projects are actually doing this. I think you guys want to build a real world use case. Could you expand more on what you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I think we've got we're quite coy about it, but we see lots of opportunity to basically build a core organization that delivers. If you look at, if you look at MDB Plus and the way we use it as an organization, right? If we took the money that we have invested in MDB Plus or even Phoenix Plus, right, and we put it into, say, a BUSD farm on Cake, it would get no returns at all. We get like 10 times what we would get. So our capital gets a much better return. At the same time, we also were able to drive those returns because we're basically managing our own ecosystem as well. And there's many organizations in the real world where they probably get a very poor deal from real world finance, i.e. they move lots of money around and pay very high fees to do so, and they get very low returns on the pile of capital that they have as well. And we see a way that you can connect the dots between the two, and integrating blockchain technology into that also. And so we're building, basically, building a use case and a data set in this space, and then we'll I say pivot. It won't change MDB as an organization, but we'll then build a real world business on top of that experience and data, and then we'll have something that we can take out to the real world. But it's basically focused on sort of payment solutions and finance systems that are also leveraging sort of blockchain technology on a closed network basis.
It sounds, it sounds to me like you guys are sort of doing a spin-off on Aspire Bank, or other real-world lending platforms. And I asked this question before, which you bounced back at me. But do you guys also plan to build DeFi lending and borrowing on chain?
It's not in our roadmap at the moment.
Got it. Because I think, with the whole ecosystem being very deep into DeFi, it's definitely something, to explore. So are you guys not going down that route because you see it as being detrimental to the protocol? You know that because in my opinion, lending MDB plus would actually be quite beneficial, and with interest paid back.
Yeah, definitely, and that is something that's on the radar, like relatively short term. But we're just not in, we're not in the business of sort of plastic white papers where we just say stuff without really understanding it. I think we're in the discovery phase of those things at the moment, and I think and until the point of which we would decide that would be core to our strategy, then we wouldn't talk about that as a direction, because it's just using words for the sake of it.
Yeah, completely understand. And from what I see, you guys are taking it very slow and rolling out, your roadmap actually how it is supposed to be planned. So it's a very midterm plan. It's very sustainable, in my opinion. I think the consideration, just that it just the fact that you guys are not thinking too deep into the future and saying we're gonna deliver these crazy products that never made it to DeFi, or even become the next lending borrowing platform, the next DeFi ecosystem, is really tough respect. Because a lot of projects saying that they're going to produce these spectacular products, they show some nice previews, some nice trailers, and at the end all you're left with is a reverse 50x with some protocols, of course.
Yeah, and there's probably two things that I think people underestimate. I think, if you're going to take a strategic direction, there's probably two things. Like, one is building something that can really operate at scale is extremely expensive, and it's difficult to do, right? And I think we all know people that have struggled with that recently within the industry. And the words are easy, the theory is very easy, but then you get down to practice, it's very difficult. And I've worked in the real world where you actually have to execute. So I think you could easily kill your own goose by talking about things that you don't really fully understand. And secondly, I would say, unless you're going to change the game, then don't do it. You're just going to be an also ran. And so for us, in terms of the things that we have in mind, it's because we see a gap there, and we see there's a part of real world industry where we believe we can disrupt it and solve problems that aren't being solved today, and that can create massive opportunities as well. So that's really they're the drivers. I think cookie cutter in things that are already in existence is the easiest thing to do. Getting them to make money is extremely difficult and can kill your business very quickly.
That's very true. Coming from a traditional industry, and right now, I'm assuming you're working with a very remote, a very flexible team. How did you basically get to adapt, and have you incorporated any of your traditional work methods, perhaps amongst the team? How does the team function? How does it operate? How do you feel about being in a more flexible, I would say, modern, savvy industry and a work environment, as opposed to the traditional world?
Well, look, you're talking to somebody who's come directly from a SaaS startup, taking it from a few 100K ARR to sort of 100 million plus valuation. So I've definitely been through that journey, and also did that journey whilst it was COVID, and have spent most of the last 2.5 years of my life talking to people probably across 3 or 4 continents every single day, and spending probably at least 60% of that time working from home because of COVID and that, of how mobile the industry I was in. So for me, actually, probably what I've been doing for the last few years has been a fantastic stepping stone to where we are today. and I've certainly learned a lot of lessons that I've been able to apply to this world. So for me, it's not that much of a culture shock, actually.
Awesome. It's really good to hear. I feel a lot of people who are trying to adopt, DeFi and blockchain technology are really still on the border of getting into a more technological and a remote world. I think remote culture, especially blockchain, has really thrived ever since the COVID era happened, ever since everything was shut down. I just feel that there's a lot more that people can do to actually advocate blockchain. So, just a final question for you, and to not take up more of your time. What is your vision on being an advocate or an ambassador of blockchain? Could be for you personally, could be for your team and your ambassadors itself. And what are you trying to do? Are you trying to go down the path of driving blockchain adoption, DeFi adoption in the global atmosphere, or are you guys just happy with things the way they are?
We're certainly never happy with things the way they are, and we're always looking to move forward. And we've designed a system that can't stand still. It's basically impossible for it to do that. Even if there was sell pressure over buy pressure, then the ecosystem actually still moves forward. So I think, being very, very honest, am I interested in being a blockchain thought leader? I think I'm probably getting to a philosophical sort of like stage in my life where maybe I'm taking myself less seriously than that, and my ego doesn't really need it, to be honest. So I think I think I see a lot of opportunity, and I think blockchain as a technology is underutilized, and I see the world as very clunky. And at the moment, we're using it in a very microscopic way. It's almost like in a hobbyist way, although there's lots of money obviously moving around on it. It's still nothing compared to the bigger picture that's out there. So for me, I think being able to bridge between this world and the real world, and actually, I was looking at real world finance before I set this organization up, because I was thinking about how you could leverage some of the opportunities within this world, within the real world. And then what I realized is that the reputation of crypto is horrendous for normal people. So I thought that I flipped the strategies to start off here and then move outwards. And ultimately, I'll be brutally honest, I'd want to build a bridge and build a technology around that bridge, an ecosystem that is deployable at scale very efficiently and drives huge value and huge valuations, and make everybody that bought into MDB very early multi-millionaires. And I'll be happy to stop at that point. I don't care about standing up at conferences and people thinking that I know it all. I'd rather just deliver results, to be honest.
Spectacular answer, Danny, and I couldn't agree more with that. I feel like a lot of the projects are in it for a big cash grab. We saw a couple of them in the last 1 to 2 months, raised millions of dollars and ended up having to go defunct because of the way they operated initially. And I really respect MDB for what they're doing. And to finally explain to everyone, and I saw this question as well in the chat, as part of the MDB Plus Alliance, and also to be transparent, Project Daylight will be purchasing a minimum of $50,000 worth of MDB Plus, and this is subject to increase. And keynote on the word increase, in order to pay into our LPs to drive ever appreciating LPs, as well as support the MDB ecosystem. So for those of you who are in our community, I highly encourage you to actually get in on MDB Plus, as well as the other components of the ecosystem, because once the buy happens, do expect value to be driven to both parties accordingly.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us over, and appreciate all the diligent questions.
So, as a final closing statement, thank you very much, Danny, for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you. Please do stick around our Discord. Since you're an honorary member of our circle, we will be dropping a random Kong. So I don't know if you're into NFTs, but you have the chance to win one of those as well. But thank you for the amazing answers. No fluff, direct, straightforward. Thank you for the philosophy. Thank you for your honest insights. We completely appreciate it, and I look forward to building with MDB in the very long term.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.